It's time for the Post-Mortem Report with your hosts Ronald McGillvray and Michael Schotter. Each month, these sultans of speculative fiction take a break from bending reality to ask one burning question. What cool stuff got buried in the social media graveyard while people were busy yelling at each other? Well, there's only one way to find out, so let's dig into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Post-Mortem Report. I'm your co-host, Michael Schotter.
And I'm Santa Claus.
Ho, 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 indeed.
And I'm Ronald McGillvray. Welcome to episode 5, the Christmas edition.
Very nice, very nice. You are way more decorated. Your halls are sufficiently decked. In fact, mine pales by comparison.
Not really. I got one stocking that looks like it died like 10 years ago, and a hat that's making me sweat.
That's vintage. That sock is definitely vintage. You would pay big bucks for that on eBay. I guarantee it. Because the kids love that vintage stuff now.
Oh, they'll love this then. It's even got my name on it. Famous author.
Yeah. You should sign that. Sharpie that up, stick it on eBay. You don't even need to sell books anymore.
Maybe I'll stuff some of my books in there.
Ooh, bonus.
I'll throw some of yours in too. Just a Christmas gesture.
Nice. Of course, if you put a bunch of books in there and start swinging it around, it becomes an improvised weapon. So, your mileage may vary on what you use the sock for.
So if everyone wants to enjoy my sock, do it now because I placed it improperly and I'm about to move back and it's going to be gone. So that's my stocking. That's my decorations. There it is. And now
enjoy it while it lasts. Now
it's
he's
gone.
Back in the comfort zone.
There you go.
Very nice. Well, speaking of the comfort zone, we've got a bunch of birthdays and stuff to talk about this month. Why don't you get that party train rolling while we get festive?
All right. Well, everyone should grab a seat because apparently there was a lot of sex going on about 9 months previous to this month. So getting it started, birthday, Tim Shea's birthday was October 7th of D&T Publishing. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, this is a good opportunity to do it. So happy birthday to Tim. Brennan LaFaro, his birthday was October 10th. His book Noose is out. It's a Western revenge story. Something to check out if you like the Westerns that are popping up these days. So happy birthday to Brennan. Gaby Triana, October 12th. Her birthday just went by. She just edited Literally Dead, and it's out now. I believe it's out now. So check that one out. Nice. Ian Rogers, happy birthday to him. His birthday was October 17th. His book, Every House is Haunted, by Cemetery Dance, actually came out today, which is not actually today. It was a while ago. That's why we're called the Post-Mortem Report and not the Today Report. So
nice. I think Al Roker would probably hunt us down and punt us down the street if we called ourselves the Today Report, but that's just hunch.
There you go. So happy birthday to Ian. Check out Every House is Haunted. Drew Stepek of the Godless fame has a birthday. It's October 21st. You can check out his the 666 awards that they have. Dan McNeil, October 23rd. Happy birthday to Dan. You can check out his books, Can't Buy Me Love and The Judas Apocalypse. Both really great books. Luther Kross, his birthday, October 27th, of Fever Dreams, Volume 1 to 5. If you haven't checked those out, something to do as well. Jonathan Janz, another birthday, October 27th. His book Marla is out. Daniel Volpe, happy birthday to him. His birthday, October 30th. His book Left to You has over 500 reviews.
Wow. Killing it. Killing it, Daniel Volpe.
and just I was gonna actually send him a note because I was gonna see if he could like give me a couple of them.
Yeah.
Try to boost my book
See
reviews
if
up.
he'll let you rub his head and
I
get
was gonna
some
say,
luck.
I was gonna say, what do you need all those reviews for? Like
Yeah.
hoarding them. I said,
Nice.
send a couple my way, but we'll see. Happy birthday to Mark Allan Gunnells. His birthday was October 30th. His book, When It Rains, check that one out. Make his birthday wish come true. Buy some of his books. Beau Johnson, happy birthday to him. His birthday, October 30th as well. Old Man Rider series. It's his final installment of the Bishop Rider series, actually. So you can pick all of his series up. So happy birthday to Beau. And that's it for the birthdays. It was a long one.
Au contraire, good sir. I believe you've forgotten something.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Christmas, Santa Claus' birthday.
No. Very special birthdays. As I will illustrate here with this post from you
Very
about
nice.
About your brethren or your kin.
It's very nice of you. Yes, it was Martha and James. Their birthday, October 14th.
I have to ask, did you specifically plan the birth of your son so that it would be on your wife's birthday?
Yeah, of course.
Was this a plan?
Yeah, it was exactly a plan. I'm good with plans, not good with memory. So
Yeah.
I figured, I have it written down on the calendar. So
Yeah.
I only got to do one date.
Mm-hmm.
So it worked out.
You probably save on cake, I would think. Like cake's probably simpler. Yeah. Nice.
Gifts, not so much. I tried to buy one sort of gift.
They're not into the communal birthday gift scenario.
It didn't go over well, so I'm back to the gifts for all.
Very nice. I'm sure they appreciate that. And happy birthday to both of you.
Yes, happy birthday.
And if you're not watching, why not?
Exactly. Should be hitting that like button multiple times. So happy birthday to Martha and James. Big kisses.
Nice. Well, and speaking of which, we haven't had a good solid anniversary in a while. So you've been a busy bee these past couple of months, right? You've had a big one too.
Oh, it's turning out to be the Ron's birthday show. Yeah. You
didn't think I was going to let that slide, did you?
Yeah. Yes, I did. But now that we're there, it was our 30th wedding anniversary. We went back to where it all began, back to Montreal.
Yeah, that was a very cool picture in this post of you guys being witnessed by Mr. Leonard Cohen there in the background. I like that pic.
Yeah, we were lucky. We had really good weather because the weather all around that weekend was pretty unfriendly. So we didn't know how it was going to be, but yeah, we lucked out that whole weekend. Had a good time.
Very nice.
Yeah, 30 years. Love you lots, Martha. If you're not watching it, then I love you a little less. Yeah, that's not true.
It's that raw honesty that really propels the show forward.
Yeah.
Good times.
We don't hold any punches on this show. We tell it like it is.
No. Yeah, got to keep it real. Exactly. Keep it 100. Exactly. 50 at least.
Yeah.
Good times. Right. Well, speaking of keeping it real, I think it's time to maintain our current tradition of filling you folks in on a very important message for your holiday season.
That sounds good because I'm going to take my hat off. I'm sweating.
Excellent.
Let's hit it.
Dashing through the snow, one horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. bells on bobtails, ring-a-ling-a-ling, making spirits bright-a-little-ling. What fun it is to laugh and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingling-a-bells, jingling-a-bells, jingle all the way to little-lay. Oh, what'll fun little is a doodle-waddle in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingling-a-bells, jingling-a-bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what'll fun little is a doodle-waddle in a one-horse open sleigh. Oh-a-little-lay, 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 oh-a-little-lay. Oh, what'll fun a little is doodle-riddle in a one-horse open sleigh.
So that was a nice, festive, happy bit of advertising there. And I think that bodes well for our next subject, which kind of might be a little dark for some, but given our nature and our tendencies, I think it shouldn't be at all a surprise to you folks that we kind of want to talk about some holiday movies that are a bit darker, perhaps. What do you got for us along those lines?
I have the Christmas movie, Black Christmas. I saw a post by Jennifer Sullivan, and it made me think about it. And if Jennifer loved it, then I knew it was okay to post it up here on her show. It's
nice.
It's actually, I was looking into it, and because I knew there's original, which I love, the Canadian version, and then there was the remake. But there's actually another remake.
Oh,
I didn't even know that. I was like, because I knew the original, it was all Canadian cast, but the second one they brought in Andrea Martin into the second one, sort of as a cameo as sort of the house marm, and I thought that was kind of cool, sort of a callback to bring it back. But I was looking because I wanted just to absolutely make sure. And then I saw this movie and I said, well, why isn't Andrea Martin in this? I was sure she was in it. And I thought, oh, maybe I just dreamed it. And then I noticed that it was another one. And I was like, well, how many of these are there? So there's actually 3 Black Christmas.
yeah, I was totally unaware of that. I only thought I guess the one from 2012 is the other one that I was aware of.
Yeah.
But
There was
yeah,
one just a couple of years ago, although that doesn't say a lot. Like if I hadn't really heard about it, it's probably not that good because you think it would have been on our radar.
Well, that's the rough thing about remakes. I think especially in like the horror genre, like I can't think of too many reboots or remakes of like classic vintage horror films that actually even approach, much less surpass the original.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, especially with something like Black Christmas, where there's so much like history and legacy around that movie as far as like the slasher genre is concerned. Like, I know a lot of people argue that that's like the first slasher movie as far as like a lot of people are concerned. And even myself, like not being a big fan of slashers, like I still like have awareness of that movie and have seen it, right, and understand like its cultural significance and its like significance to the genre and that sort of thing. So I mean, it's how do you really top that or reboot that or come at that in a different way? Have you seen any of those reboots?
I've seen the first one with Andrea Martin, although I can't remember it as well. The third one, I have absolutely no idea, but supposedly it's out on streaming, so I was going to watch it. But yeah, I remember the first one. It was just the whole. I don't want to say like the gimmick because, well, I mean Halloween, you could say that's the whole gimmick too. But it was like to see through the eyes, especially back then, because I was much younger. It was so creepy, just seeing it, because it was an old place, like it was supposed to be like the sorority house, and you see it, so it's all sort of old, and you just see this creepy guy through his eyes coming out, going into the house, and then mayhem ensues. And that one attic scene with the bag, a plastic bag or the hook too. It's like, yeah. It's
I've only seen it once. Just sort of checking the box, right? It was one of those things where it's like I feel like I should watch this. I feel like there's certain movies that you like hear about if you're a genre fan, and you almost feel like obligated to see them, even if they're not necessarily like in your wheelhouse. So I've definitely seen the original, but it's been a minute. It's probably been a good solid 20 years since I've seen it. So my memory of it is very vague and fuzzy at this point. But I do remember that whole first person perspective thing, and the whole like pacing of like the way things were shot was like very methodical and kind of like drawing out the tension and that sort of thing. Like those were the things I really remember as like takeaways from viewing that. But I know you've probably seen it way more than I have, and probably have like a much more vivid like recollection of it than I do at this point. But
Yeah, it's been a while. It's I mean, the ending was so classic as well. I mean, I'm sure people have seen it now, but don't want to do anything
I don't think you can really
ending.
spoil a movie that old, right? We've already done far worse.
Yeah. Yeah, like the ending, the eyes, looking through the eyes of the killer, being sort of in a house, unaware of these killings. I mean, there were so many tropes that this one movie basically almost started. They're all classic things now, but yeah, it's a really good movie. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you do, and you can check out the remakes, and then send an email to us and let us know if it's worth watching, so we don't waste our time.
Nice.
Yeah. I tried to convince my family that we should watch Black Christmas every Christmas as part
of go over like a lead balloon.
Yeah, I didn't even get like one vote. I thought maybe my son would. But yeah, that'd be kind of fun. But yeah, nobody's interested.
Not having it. Nice.
Yeah. So I think it'd be a good tradition, but it was a no-go. So yeah, so for holiday horror movie, Black Christmas is my pick.
Nice. Well, I'm going to talk about a terrible movie.
Perfect.
What I think is kind of a terrible movie, although it does have some memorable moments to it. Mostly because I think it's a good opportunity to talk about something pretty cool. So the movie is I think noteworthy, especially considering my age and where I was in life when it kind of hit theaters for the brief time that it actually manifested in theaters, which is Silent Night, Deadly Night. So like when I was a kid, this was kind of the movie that like all the other kids kind of wanted to see, because it had that sort of illicit, taboo kind of vibe about it. And I actually remember seeing it. I actually watched it with my parents.
Really?
On video. Yeah, they're like, yeah, you want to see it? Sure, let's see it, right? Which I thought was kind of cool, right? So they're like, let's see what the big deal is. So we watched it and kind of came to the conclusion that beyond the sort of gimmick of like the killer Santa Claus, right? Not a really spectacular movie. Although I will say, watching some coverage of that movie in recent years, I've kind of developed a little bit more of an appreciation for it. And that's actually what I really wanted to talk about here, which is a YouTube series that many of you maybe already be familiar with if you're horror fans. But if you're not, definitely want to open you up to it, which is Dead Meat, or The Kill Counts on YouTube, because they do some absolutely excellent breakdowns of pretty much all the classic and modern horror films. Have you ever seen any of those?
Yeah, I watched the Silent Night, Deadly Night one just to refresh myself. And I didn't actually remember that movie being as smutty as it was.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of
semi-nudity.
Yes, prolific nudity, I guess is what I would say in that film. Although it kind of helps, like in the context of the Dead Meat video, right? He's only showing the more salacious scenes of the movie, right? So it kind of gives you the impression that there's a ton of it. But I mean, obviously it's like a 90-minute, horror film. So, and I think all of the scenes that you see in that video are all of the scenes that are there to be seen. So when you think about it, that's not actually that much content, but just seeing it all kind of strung together like that definitely makes it stand out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Billy definitely doesn't like Santa.
No, naughty. Naughty.
Naughty, all right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. Like there's definitely certain scenes from that movie that I remember, like even before seeing the kill count for it and kind of being refreshed on it. Like that whole scene where the cop's going to the church because he thinks he's gonna stop the Santa, and it turns out it's like the priest dressed up as Santa. He ends up murking him,
Yeah.
which is kind of double brutal when you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was I mean the kills were kind of they're kind of campy too. It
Oh
was just
yeah,
kind of like
yeah.
the whole
I think the only super memorable one actually is the cop, right? When he goes down to the basement and then all that tension gets built up, and then when he's coming up out of the stairs and they do that one single tracking shot where he axes him in the chest,
yeah,
and then he
yeah,
falls back down the stairs, and the camera sort of follows him down so you can see him like where he landed. Like that's kind of a cool shot and kind of a cool like way of doing that sort of thing. But I think to me that's really the only like standout moment in that movie, like
yeah,
effects wise or like cinematography wise or anything like that. Like it's definitely not like high art by any stretch.
yeah. Yeah. It'd be a fun movie to watch with a bunch of friends,
Mm-hmm.
and just
Yeah.
kind of laugh and have some beers.
Yeah. You take a shot every time he says naughty, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Make a game out of it.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Good times. But yeah,
Two-
definitely would recommend Dead Meat and the Kill Count, especially like I say, if you are a horror fan and you're not familiar with that YouTube channel, I think it's definitely worth a look
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Dead Meat was definitely interesting. They have some pretty cool look. Once again, talking about people who spend a lot of time on minuscule little things,
Mm-hmm.
really deep dive into them. So
Yep.
good for them. They know what their passions are. So
That's the thing, right? You got to find that thing that you're super into and figure out a way to capitalize on it, and then you pretty much got it, right?
yeah,
That's kind of the secret sauce, I think, of success with a lot of that stuff. But speaking of the secret sauce of success, which I don't know if I'd want to try to say that 10 times fast, but I got it out, so that's good. Let's talk about some music.
our new segment.
Indeed. Let's put it up here towards the front of the show so more people get to see it.
Perfect.
What do you got for us for your music selection this time around?
Well, today I've picked the album, the rock opera by The Who, Quadrophenia. I took that pause because most people are probably going to think I said Tommy.
Right?
Now,
Yeah, you set it
Quadrophenia,
up. You teed it up for them to like expect
exactly.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
Quadrophenia, great album.
Mm-hmm.
Critics love it, everyone liked it, but I don't think it gets as much love as Tommy. And
Indeed.
and
Yeah.
The Who, of course, like Who's Next? Who Are You, Tommy? There's such
Who by Numbers. Yeah.
a great plethora of albums. Sometimes Quadrophenia gets left behind, but it's just an amazing album. I think I posted one. Someone said, if you had the perfect album or 10 out of 10, what would it be? And I posted it. And actually, a bunch of people actually gave it a like. So I guess there are many fans out there. But it's the story's really cool. It's trying to put it in words.
I think there's a surprising amount of social commentary on that album that a lot of people kind of gloss over or don't really pick up on a like initial listen. Like there's a lot of depth going on lyrically and in terms of like some of the things that they do, like with like sound effects in the background and stuff with like the radio chatter on some of the songs and like
Lots of water, lots of ocean sounds. But the story is basically about a mod named Jimmy. And he's trying to figure out where he fits in the world. And there's the whole sort of the mods versus kind of the rockers aspect, which leads to this absolutely fun-filled brawl on, I believe it's in Brighton, and but yeah, they talk talk about friendships. Once again, I don't want to say too much if you haven't seen it. Mind you, it's so old. It was it was posted by Vintage Rock and Roll, and I was thinking, really? So my albums are vintage now?
That is very much a vintage album at this point. Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah, for sure.
But
well, and I think you were kind of alluding to the film that was made, which I think like, even fewer people are aware of that than necessarily the album, right? And that had Sting in it. And do you remember, was that before or after he was in Dune? I think that was like right around the same time, wasn't it? Like early 80s that movie came out. Because I know Sting had like a brief, I think it was
before.
Yeah, he had like a brief like foray as an actor. I know he did Quadrophenia and Dune, the original Dune, the one from way back in the day, right around the same time. I think you're right, though. I think Quadrophenia was first.
Yeah, he was. He still had that sort of the punky spiked hair look going,
super chiseled physique.
Yeah. And there was a whole other facet, is like how he led sort of he was a leader of the mods, and then there's kind of a twist later on where things are falling apart for the character Jimmy, and he goes to find this leader who he got strength from and sees him in a light that's when he finds out what he actually does, because he's always so well dressed and he was the snappiest, coolest guy on the dance floor and everything, and then he bumps into him and it's kind of a letdown. And the ending's very ambiguous as well, but the songs, Dr. Jimmy, 515, I've Had Enough, Love Reign Over Me, it's just like,
well, and that whole musical refrain of Love Reign on Me, right, is like throughout the album, right? It crops up like at various points, so that by the time you actually get to the end of that second album and that hits, right, and it fully manifests as a complete song, it's such an epic moment because you've heard that little melodic rhythm, throughout the whole album up to that point. So when that crescendo happens, it's like mind-blowing the first time you hear it.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how many times I've listened to the album. I've seen the movie several times, but not for a while. I should really pull it out again.
It's really funny because, like, in my youth, listening to that album, I definitely would have said I was a bigger fan of the second album, the second disc or whatever. So basically from like 515 onward.
Yeah.
But it's interesting now listening to it older. I feel like I have more of an appreciation for the first part of it now than I did back then. Like it hits me differently. Like some of the stuff in those initial tracks just resonates with me in a different way than it did back then. And I find that interesting, how you can listen to songs or bands or whatever, and even different albums or different songs by the same band will resonate with you differently, like at different points throughout your life.
Right. Yeah, it's Keith Moon too, his drumming was really profound.
Oh my god, those initial drum hits at the beginning of The Rock, like that's another thing about that album that's great, is some of the instrumental songs on it, like Quadrophenia and The Rock, like those initial drum hits are so snappy, like it feels like you could just get your head blown off by them. They're so crisp.
It was a great album, really cool movie. As I said, we could talk about the band itself for days on end. They just
well, it is safe to say, right, that's pretty much your favorite band, right?
Yeah, you can probably see, I think it's over that shoulder there. There's a Who on the wall.
Nice. Nice.
I forget where it was.
Yeah.
Plus the candles at Club Noriak.
Nice.
I wasn't there because that was back It doesn't have the year. Saturday, March 13th, The Who at the Norwiak. Catch them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, no, there I've got like all their albums.
Mm-hmm.
Got a bunch of bootlegs, which were the cool thing to do back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Then of course I got everything again on CD
Mm-hmm.
of all their movies. I have a bunch of their live concerts. I've seen them like about 5 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you bring your cotton balls to jam into your
No,
ears? Yeah.
I went
Protection
completely
was
yeah.
very necessary at
Yeah.
a Who concert for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to their first final tour in Buffalo, and I remember they did a version of Twist and Shout, and literally I thought that the stadium was going to collapse.
Yeah.
Everyone was jumping, and the Bill Stadium then it was kind of like a almost underground, like they dug it in. It was like, and like I'd never seen anything like it. I'd been at concerts in Ottawa, but this place, just the amount of people that were there, and the jumping up and down, the shaking. I thought this stadium's all good. It's just going to collapse. You know,
Yeah.
we're all going to die. It's going to be like Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the Who's fans are a very dedicated bunch. The hooligans.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I have sadly never had the opportunity to see them live, but I have heard many stories from my dad, who has seen them live several times,
Yeah.
and have definitely seen enough footage of them playing live to be thoroughly impressed.
Yeah.
So,
my wife wasn't a huge fan, and I convinced her to go to one of the concerts, and I converted her. So it's they're in. I mean, they're an incredible band, but live they're just something else.
Yeah.
Something else.
Yeah, I know I've even heard some of their more recent live recordings, and it's still amazing that they can, do what they're doing at the age that they're at this point.
Yeah.
Like, they still, Roger Daltrey's still kind of got it to a large extent, vocally, which is nothing short of amazing.
So if you haven't ever watched Quadrophenia or listened to Quadrophenia, rectify that problem. Ask for it for Christmas.
Indeed. Yeah, but use your Christmas gift card and correct that stat.
Yeah, exactly.
Highly recommended from both of us for sure.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite? Do you enjoy the Who? Because the thing is about the Who, I mean, some people sit on the fence, but a lot of people just don't like them. It's like you love them or you don't.
See, I can't even imagine not liking them. That just doesn't even compute in my brain.
I know. Yeah, I have a bunch of friends who just don't. I'm like, how can you not like them? But I don't know. Whatever.
I mean, I will say, like, a lot of their stuff is fairly eclectic. Like, so there are like tunes that like for example on Quadrophenia, right? Like you have like things like Bellboy, right?
Yeah.
Which that's kind of a quirky number there with the whole like Cockney gravelly vocal thing, and like that's like kind of an acquired taste, right? But it's also very unique and distinct to them, right? Like that's something that only they would do, right? And be able to get away with and be able to make work the way they do. So I've always appreciated that about them. In fact,
go ahead. I was going to say they have several sort of novelty songs.
Yeah, I was going to say, in fact, probably one of my favorite Who songs is actually Boris the Spider.
A John Entwistle classic.
Yeah, that bass line too. Then
yeah.
I do the creepy crawly point, but the creepy crawly part, but I'm sure my voice would just crack and embarrass me, so we'll forego that.
Yeah,
but
it was like me gonna sing Yes from drama last episode. So I can't really hold your feet under the fire on that one. So
I think I gave you about as much as you can reasonably expect from me vocally on that one already. But speaking of spiders, I think that's an excellent opportunity to transition and talk about something else I wanted to talk about this time, which are some of the books we've been reading. And the first one I want to mention is actually a repeat offender here on the show, because in our very first episode, we talked about The Hangman Feeds the Jackal, which had just been released by Coy Hall. And I actually have gotten around to finishing that book fairly recently.
Seriously?
And
Seriously?
what?
I'm halfway through the book.
Oh, you haven't finished yet?
No.
Oh, my bad.
It's really good though, Coy. You're going to give a spoiler free though. Talk.
Well, that's the thing. We're not going to spoil a brand new book. That's not going to happen. So, I think you're sufficiently far in that we can talk about the setup and the premise and all that stuff, right? And
definitely about the spider.
Yeah, the spider makes a grand appearance like pretty early on, like within the first few pages. So that's pretty cool. But for those who shamefully have not seen the episode where we talked about this book previously, this is basically a gothic Western. So it kind of fits into the classical Western archetype of story structure, but with a bit of a gothic, psychological, philosophical twist to it. And I don't really want to go too deeply into it beyond saying that, because I think a lot of the joy of this book is in experiencing it for yourself. But one thing I do want to say is that this was definitely one of my favorite reads of the year, largely because it had really great, well fleshed out, nuanced, detailed characters and settings and atmosphere, and also told, I thought, a really good, engaging, and compelling story around all that. But maybe you can chime in with your thoughts on what you've experienced in the early stages of it so far.
Well, yeah, I'm about halfway through now, and what really caught me is his writing style. I mean, Coy can write. I just, it just it draws you in. It's I could probably just, read if he wrote a recipe or something. I'd probably enjoy that. So he's really got the writing skills down, and I can tell it's just the way things are kind of. I mean, the whole atmosphere. I was getting all caught up into it, but I get this kind of a feeling now that things are ratcheting up. I can sort of feel like a tension, because there was something our
I know we had talked about it a little bit before the show, and I know the point that you're at is kind of a really critical sort of tipping point where things really start to kind of jump off. So I'm going to be real excited to talk to you kind of privately about that once you finish up. But
I could just feel the tension ramping, and then the hero says something, and I thought, okay, I can sort of see where this is going. I'm feeling there's going to be carnage. So, but so far, really, really loving the book.
Yeah. So I think the last thing I'll say about it, because I know we got a bunch of other stuff to get to, is I had this moment when I was reading it, and it's something that I really enjoy experiencing when I'm reading a book that really clicks for me, is this idea of you read a few paragraphs and then you kind of pause for a moment and you kind of close your eyes and you envision what you just read. And I think one thing this book does really well is it communicates everything to you so well that you can come up with a really clear, vivid vision of everything that he's putting out there many times. There were many times throughout reading the book where I just kind of paused and took it all in and just sort of envisioned what I had been presented, and that was a really cool, satisfying experience. So for sure, if you're into Westerns, if you're into horror, and those two things together in particular, I think for sure that's a book you should absolutely check out.
I concur. Great job, Coy.
Indeed. So what have you been up to reading wise?
Well, I've read a couple. One that I'm sure I'm going to botch up the title, even though it's a simple title. I'm not sure what the name of the bird is. So it's by Wendy Dalrymple, an excellent novella, and it's white, either Ibis or Ibis. I'm not sure. It's like a big white bird.
I've always heard it
Ibis.
said Ibis, but I'm not
Ibis.
sure that that's correct.
Yeah,
I can't plant a flag in the ground one way or the other on that one.
yeah. It's it's because I'm looking at this like IBIS.
I'd
But
say just
whatever.
pick one and go with it. I'm sure you'll be
Yeah,
forgiven. Yeah.
yeah. But it's an excellent book. It follows Chelsea, who is having some relationship issues, and she meets a new friend at her workout place, and they become really close, and things spiral.
Hmm.
Yeah, and once again, it's a novella, so I'm trying to pick what to say without like ruining things, but the ending I can guarantee you will not see coming.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's sort of a blend of horror and fantasy. There's some body horror. It's a well-rounded book. Writing style really good. I blew through it. Really a quick read, very engaging. Um, and then there's that white bird.
Yeah.
That white bird. I don't
Interesting.
want to say too much about
So
the
the bird actually is I'm assuming an important component of the story, right? If that's the title, and I
yeah, it
believe
makes
featured prominently on the
appearances.
cover. Yeah.
Makes appearances. Kind of, when it arrives, you just know it's like
Yeah.
a bad omen kind of thing.
Sort of like a Edgar Allan Poe Raven situation, maybe.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
You could say that, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'd highly recommend if you haven't read Wendy's book, White Abyss
Ibis.
or Ibis, you
We'll
should
say it both
definitely
ways,
check
and
it
then we're
out.
covered
There
either
you
way.
go. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
But I
Nice.
apologize to Wendy for butchering the name of her book, but I give it 2 thumbs up. It's an excellent read.
Nice.
Follow Chelsea's adventures.
Nice. Well, speaking of adventures, before we get into your other book, I did want to talk about another thing that I read recently, which is Death Gets a Book by Mr. Frank J. Edler. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Frank and his work, he's basically primarily a bizarro fiction author. So if you're not familiar with the concept of bizarro fiction, it's basically fiction that tends to lean into the absurd or like the over the top or the outlandish as its sort of like framework for delivering its story. And so the book is, kind of grounded in basic core storytelling elements. There's a premise and there's characters, and everything kind of gets set up in a sort of natural, normal way. And then from that foundation, things kind of go a little bananas and a little off the rails and a little zany and over the top. Um, I don't typically read a ton of bizarro or absurdist fiction, so this book for me was definitely a bit outside my wheelhouse. And I would definitely say like it's important to kind of know what you're getting into with a book like this, which is why I had all that preamble for it. But sort of my takeaway from it was that it seemed to me like a good example of the genre. It seemed like that people who are into that sort of thing would probably really enjoy it. It's got like a lot of just really quirky, bananas, over the top stuff in it. Um, Maybe some mild content warnings depending on, your personal tastes and preferences and things you may or may not be into.
Yeah,
I'd say maybe check my review out for that book if you want more detail about that sort of thing. But I definitely enjoyed reading it and definitely thought it was a cool concept. And wanted to give it a shout out for sure. So shout out to Frank.
perfect. Alrighty.
What else you got for us?
Well, part of my project of trying to learn how to do audiobooks and listen to them without my mind wandering. I've been practicing. I got a new book that I listened on audiobook is S.A. Cosby's Razorblade Tears.
Mm.
Yeah.
I've been really curious to check that one out, but I have not myself, so I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah. Well, it's a buddy revenge book. It's Ike and Buddy Lee are two characters. One is white, one is black. Both are had gay sons who are murdered. The two of them came from, well, what they have in common is they came from the penal system, years of doing time, but otherwise they're completely different social backgrounds. But they get together to try to help solve what happened to their sons. And it just, as I said, I usually have problems with audiobooks where my mind wanders and starts thinking about other things. This kept me captivated the whole time. It was just and it just ratchets up, and then it'll kind of it'll do some character building, and then it's just right back into the action. This was a great audiobook. Yeah, I'd like to read it actually to see what it would be like, reading it.
That was what I was just going to ask you is, do you feel like you would have enjoyed it more or less had you actually physically read it? Do you have any kind of sense of that? Or like, because I know you've said you struggled with audiobooks, so it wouldn't be surprising for you to say that you think you might enjoy it more as a physical read.
Yeah,
but
I enjoy reading it better, but this narrator did a really good job.
Yeah, I think that says a lot, right? For somebody who's not typically into audiobooks to enjoy it so much, I think is important. Yeah.
This one, well, I mean, it gets a lot of love too on social media. A lot of people who've read it or listened to it have really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that one pop up quite a few times. It's definitely on my radar. Not really my typical like go-to sort of genre or premise, but I definitely thought it seemed interesting. And now knowing that you've given it a thumbs up, that may entice me to investigate it further.
Yeah. No, I was pleasantly surprised because I'd heard a lot about it, and I thought, I should check it out because who doesn't love a buddy revenge? Right. So I thought, I'll check it out, and it was certainly worth it.
Nice.
Did you listen to many audiobooks?
So I used to quite a bit. I definitely was on an audiobook kick for a while, and especially like when I had found a few narrators whose style I particularly liked, I almost kind of went out of my way to read things that they had done. But a lot of the narrators who I used to listen to are either out of the game or have passed away, unfortunately, at this point. So that's a bit of a bummer. I haven't really found a lot of new audiobook narrators that I'm kind of keen on. That's not to say they're not out there. That's just because I haven't really been looking for them. But I think one of the things that kind of got me back into physical reading was going electronic with everything, because being visually impaired, like I really appreciate being able to blow the text up on a Kindle or on a tablet or whatever, just being able to make it massive and just scrolling through the pages instead of having to flip physical pages or use a magnifying glass or any of the stuff I typically would have had to do before ebooks kind of became a thing. And so that kind of disincentivized me to stick with audiobooks because I finally found a way to read physical books that's comfortable for me.
Right.
But I do really enjoy like a good, well done audiobook. Like I feel like there's a lot to be said for that, especially like when you have that like magical combination of an author who actually happens to have a really good narration voice and you can get the book actually read by the author. I think that's like a winner for sure. But yeah, I'm kind of all over the place with it. I think the last audiobook that I actually read was Stephen King's Under the Dome, mostly because I knew it was so long. I really just didn't want to didn't want to do the physical read on that one because I was kind of lukewarm on whether I even wanted to read it. And so having it read to me was just kind of a nice bonus. But that one was pretty good. The audio on that was really good. And I also read his Bill Hodges trilogy in audio. So like Mr. Mercedes and Finders Keepers and End of Watch. I did those as audio as well.
Well, it's handy in a way because you can read a book and then you can actually listen to another book. So when I go for walks or whatever, I can listen to something. So you're getting two books in instead of just like reading one and going to another. I can do like two books at a time, just kind of separate styles, one by book, one by audio. But yeah, a lot of my stuff, like you said, is ebooks now. I mean, I have 10 bookcases overflowing with books. I'm just looking at some that are in my office here, and it's, I love them, but as my eyes started to fade, I just started to, the ebook was just so much more comfortable reading.
Yeah.
The whole squinting and stuff like that. Plus, having my wife doesn't like to read late, and when I get caught up in a book I'm reading, and it's like, turn the light off. Not that that's a problem. Happy birthday still. I love you. But
the dangers of having your significant other watch your podcast
watching the show,
are being revealed.
But it's reading different times. So now, you can get the page with dimming and stuff. So it's now I can lie in bed and read and not disturb my wife.
Yeah, very nice. Sure, that's appreciated.
Yeah.
I really like I think we talked about this a little bit previously, but it probably bears repeating. I like the sort of engagement that your mind goes into when you're physically reading something. I think that's one of the things that always kind of draws me back to it, is that I feel like my mind works differently and it consumes what I'm reading differently when I'm actively, reading the lines on the page versus having them read to me. But I do think you can absolutely experience a story through audio in like a cool, unique, valid way. It's just a different way. And it's just a question of like almost like the mood I'm in sometimes, whether I choose one or the other. But the last thing I would say about the whole ebooks thing is I'm to the point now where like I do not buy a physical book, like a paperback or a hardcover, unless I'm collecting, right? Like unless it's something where like I want to put this on a shelf and display it, because at this point it would just be insane. Like I'd have way too many books and it would just be completely out of control. So like being able to just consolidate that onto a tablet and have it take up like zero space is amazing.
Yeah. And you get it right away. I mean, I guess you could call, Amazon, they'll send it to you in a day or two, but with an ebook, it's like, oh, is that ever cool? Press a button, bing, there it is.
Yeah, you really can't go wrong with that.
I know. It's the perfect time for readers. I mean, if you're not reading, I mean, it's all set up perfectly for you now. It's so easy to get to. There's so many great authors out there.
Yeah, for sure.
So Razorblade Tears, really good book.
Indeed.
Audio book.
Well, speaking of audio visual stimulation, I think it's time to talk about one of our favorite things, which is video games.
Hi, I love video games.
So what sort of video game adventures have you been on recently?
Well, today I would like to talk about Alien Isolation.
Ooh,
now, this is a real creep fest. It's very intense, especially if you've seen the movies. I mean, it just, because it's in everyone's psyche, because everyone knows Alien. You know the monster.
Legend. Yes.
Yeah. And you're on this spaceship, and it's just a horror show. It's a horror show. And I'll admit at the beginning when I first started playing it, I think we actually discussed this before. It was like, I didn't even know I was going to finish it. I just thought, not that I was like scared or whatever. It was just, I just couldn't beat the alien. It takes patience and perseverance to kind of figure out patterns and stuff. But it's
Mhm.
just like, he's a nasty piece of work. He comes at you, he just kills you, kills you, kills you, kills you.
Yeah.
And your hands are like sweating. It's just like the whole the ambiance of it. It's like that really sad, pathetic spaceships. Like you think like who would even be willing to step in there and go into space in one of these things? They're just sort of like they don't look like they're ever going to make it like out of the dockyard,
Yeah.
but they're in it anyways. And so
Yeah,
you're
what's
going
up with
through
the
these.
alien universe and hoopty spaceships and hoopty space stations? Yeah.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's like they're it's not working, and they're like banging on stuff to make stuff work. I was like, just pull over somewhere. Let
Yeah.
me out of the spaceship
Oh, it's
because I
not
don't want to
working.
be
Hit
in
it
it.
with a wrench.
Yeah, yeah. But
Aliens attacking you, hit it with a wrench.
exactly, because when your ship just blows up, no one's gonna hear you scream in space, or in space, no one's gonna
Nice.
hear you scream. But
Nice
yeah,
callback.
it's a great it's a great game. Once I started getting into it and I gave it a fair shake, it was just nonstop action. And there's a whole other kind of thing where there's trouble with like humans because some of them are trying to get out, but some of them have, of course, their own agenda, and you're trying to make it through this big space station, and it's yeah, it's like just place yourself in a movie. I mean, it's the closest thing to actually placing yourself into one of the Alien franchise movies.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had a riot doing it.
So I don't remember too. I've seen a bunch of this game played, but I've never played it myself. But as I recall, there's sort of like break points, right? Like almost like chapter or like rest points where you can kind
Yeah,
of stop and catch your breath, and that's kind of like where you're encouraged to save, like so you can come back and continue on later.
yeah.
Did you find those very necessary? Did you kind of have to do it in spurts, or was it more like once you got going, you just powered through it?
I don't actually remember it that well. I remember, you really have to time manage. It's when you're looking, especially when you're getting low on weapons or something, it's like, save. Don't
Hmm.
try to
Yeah.
don't push it, just go, I just want to get this part. I want to get this, don't get this part. Go save, then do that part. Because trust me, you can't trust the humans, and you never know when these aliens are going to come out. And when they come out, they're fast and nasty.
Yeah.
And there's so many times where I was like, oh, I just want to finish this one thing. I just gotta go through there. And I was like, all of a sudden it just appeared. And I was like, seriously? Like it just crashes through the ceiling. And I'm just, and you try to run. And there's so many times I was hiding in lockers. The lockers, they have the slats,
Oh yeah,
the
yeah,
lockers
yeah.
for, and you're looking, and they're the aliens just back and forth, searching the room, throw things over. I'm just like, yeah, because that's another thing they build really well. Although when you're wanting to go to bed and you're already like past an hour past your bedtime, and you're
Hmm.
just kind of going, speed it up, come on. But it
Yeah.
just, but during normal gameplay, it's just the tension. You're sitting there in your hiding spot, and they're so close to you going by. And of course, sometimes if you make noise, they hear you, and then you're dead. But
Hmm.
you really feel it. I mean, I don't know anything about programming, but they brought it to life as well as I can imagine, because I felt like I was in that locker just sweating it out.
Yeah. Yeah, the sense of immersion in that game seems really on point. Because I've played a bunch of other Alien and Aliens themed games, like the
Yeah,
original like movie Alien game from like the
yeah,
Commodore 64 days, all the way up through like Colonial Marines and Aliens Fire Team and some of those more modern games. But for whatever reason, Alien Isolation was just one that I never played myself. I think it's mostly because I had seen so much of the game streamed on Twitch because a buddy of mine who was streaming on Twitch happened to play that through a big chunk of that game, and I watched his stream, so I kind of got to experience it vicariously through him. So that was kind of good for me. I think we talked about this previously, that like, as far as like the whole survival horror gameplay goes, like I'm not averse to it, and I've certainly played like a ton of those kind of games, but like at this point it's not really something that I seek out very much. And like I kind of felt like I got my fix kind of watching it being played. But I could see myself maybe trying that out, or giving it a go at some point in the future, because it was really cool. Like what I saw of it just seemed awesome.
Yeah, it's if you like survival horror, this is I mean, I love Resident Evil, but this is like this was something else. And I don't think it got as much love as it deserved. I don't know how
Yeah,
well
I think
it
a lot of
sold.
people slept on that game, unfortunately. But I've never heard anybody who's actually played it say anything bad about it. So yeah, definitely a good one to shout out.
Yeah, if you like the Alien franchise movies and you always thought what you do when you were there, this is a movie for you, or this is a video game for you. Alien
Nice.
Isolation.
Very nice. Well, keeping with the sci-fi theme, I was going to talk about a couple of free-to-play games that I've been playing recently, because that's something we've never really touched on here on the show. We've talked about a bunch of games, but I don't think we've ever even mentioned any that weren't sort of premium titles. But I think the free-to-play game space is really interesting, especially in recent years. Like there's a lot of really great stuff out there, especially on the PC side of things. So real quick, I was just going to mention both of these. They're both futuristic science fiction themed first person shooters, but they kind of have a little bit of a different vibe to them. So I'll start out with this game Shatterline, which is actually made by a developer who's currently working in Ukraine amidst all the chaos that's happening there to make this game, which is kind of another interesting real world factoid about it. But this game is basically a first-person shooter that has, your standard competitive first-person arena modes like team deathmatch and capture points and defuse the bomb, things like you come to expect in a modern competitive first-person shooter. But what actually drew me to this particular game is it has a player versus environment, or PvE mode, that's basically like a roguelike scenario where you and two other friends can go on these drop missions where you drop down into a hostile environment and have to work with your buddies to perform missions. So it might be like, go to this part of the map and get this object, or go to this other part of the map and kill a bunch of AI enemies, or go and escort this person from one place to another. And the caveat to it, or the trick to it, is the environment gets more and more hostile the longer you stay in it. So it's sort of like a risk reward thing, like how many objectives can you get done before time runs out and the environment just gets so nasty that it kills you before you can extract with like your loot and your goodies and whatever that you've acquired. So I really like that sort of dynamic. There's a bunch of games out there that do that sort of thing, but one of the really cool things about Shatterline is the stuff you do in that PvE mode unlocks blueprints. That's sort of your reward, and then that actually can help you out in the PvP mode when you're doing the competitive stuff. So there's like this sort of dynamic crossover thing, like as you play the two different modes, either cooperatively with your friends or competitively against other people, all that stuff kind of feeds into itself and creates this little interesting gameplay loop.
Yeah, some of it kind of reminded me of Call of Duty gameplay almost.
Yeah, it's very fast paced. Yeah, very like Call of Duty-esque, quick trigger response, quick time to kill, for the enemies. They don't take a lot of shots to put down. I'd say the only thing that really differentiates it from Call of Duty is the character. You actually play as characters, and those characters kind of have special abilities. So it's kind of like a hero shooter. But you also have like weapon loadouts and weapon attachments and things like that you unlock as you play and progress through the game. And that's very reminiscent of like a Call of Duty, weapon loadout scenario. So it's definitely got its own flair and its own kind of flavor to it, but you
Yeah,
can also really see how it was like heavily influenced by a bunch of other, good games.
yeah,
So
yeah. It looked cool.
yeah.
I'd like to just bring up though that I hate escort segments.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
I always
yeah.
died in escort. I don't like escorting any other kind of characters because I never do well.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't know that I've actually seen an escort mission in that mode. I was just kind
No.
of throwing that out there as an example of the kind of
Okay.
things you might have to do. Because the thing is, it's randomized, right? So the environment's a little bit randomized, and the things they
Okay.
have you do in it are a little bit randomized. And I've seen a bunch of different kinds of missions where it's like you have to go collect these samples and then put them into this thing, or you have to get this item and use it on an enemy in a specific way to complete the objective or whatever. And it's every time I've done it, with my buddies, it's been a little bit different. So it's kind of hard to say what the scope is of it.
Right.
But I think that's kind of part of the appeal of it is it's a little different every time you do it. So it's not just like a grind.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
but real quick, the other game I wanted to talk about just to give it a little bit of love as well is this other game called the Cycle Frontier, and this is also a sort of hybrid PvP and PvE game where the premise is you're on this space station and you're trying to drop down to this hostile planet and collect resources and perform missions and stuff like that. But there are also other players or other potential groups of players that are trying to do their own thing and can, if they so desire, mess with you and kill you and take your stuff. So there's definitely like, you can end up playing that game and have an experience where you don't come across any other players and you just go down to the planet, do your thing, and get out. Or you can be in the midst of doing your thing with your buddies or whatever and get jacked by some
Yeah.
other people like out of the blue. And
Yeah.
that makes for a really interesting experience because you just really never know what you're going to get
And
when you drop
aggravating.
in. What's that?
And
Oh
aggravating.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Potentially very aggravating. Like
Yeah.
they do some things to try to address that to make things as balanced as they can be,
Yeah.
but yeah, the fact that you have to go into this environment that there is a very real possibility that your character is just going to get ganked and gotten is
Yeah.
uh is very precarious for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, that's what appealed to me about this game was is just I like the idea that they had to pick up loot.
Hmm.
You had to go get loot to sort of upgrade, do stuff. I like that. I played a game like that years ago, and it kind of reminded me of that. And I was thinking that's kind of a fun aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, and one nice thing about it is there are some safety nets, right? Like you can buy insurance when you drop down. So like if you lose all your stuff, you can get some money back for it. Or if you're like you have a particular piece of gear or whatever that you're really fond of and you don't want to lose, you can get
Yeah.
insurance on that particular item. And as long as it doesn't get looted by another player, you'll get it back.
Yeah.
Somebody will go and salvage it for you is like the premise that they're sort of laying out there with that. And the other thing is you actually have a couple of what they call safe pockets where it's like if you're trying to do a specific quest or a specific mission and you're like, oh, I finally got this item that I really need and I really don't want to lose it, you can put it into your safe pocket, and then even if you end up getting greased, you'll still get that item, so you can progress with what you're trying to do. So it's not a completely all or nothing sort of thing, but the tension is definitely there and it's
Yeah.
definitely real. Uh,
Sounds
so
cool.
yeah, it's all kind of what you're after in your gameplay experience. But I think like between those two games, if you're into like sci-fi shooters and you like PvP or you like co-op, doing stuff with your buddies, I think there's fun to be had in both of those for sure with like a $0 investment, other than your time.
Yeah. Is it on Steam or
Yeah, those are both on Steam. I'm not sure if they can be found elsewhere. As far as I know, they're both PC only games, although I think there may be a version of the Cycle Frontier on console, or if there's not already, there may be one coming soon. because that game actually started out as an extraction royale game that was very different from what it is now, and they actually kind of scrapped the game and redid it based on player feedback. And so the version of it now, it used to just be called The Cycle, and now they call it The Cycle Frontier to kind of distinguish the new version from the old one. So I think a lot of people had played the old version and were like, oh, I already played that game, not realizing that like it's literally completely changed since it originally debuted. I think that was back in 2016 that the original version hit.
2016. That's like the beginning of time.
Right. Yeah. Anything pre-COVID at this point just seems like eons ago, right? Yeah. But yeah, good times. Always good times doing video game stuff. Yeah. And especially like around the holidays. I don't know about you, but I find like my gameplay time tends to go way up around the holidays because a lot of people are off work, and you get together with people that you maybe don't get to see as often throughout the year during the holidays and stuff like that. Yeah. I find I throw down, especially online with people a lot more in that time of year.
Yeah. Well, it's only holidays and time off, more time to, do stuff that you enjoy. That's why it's holidays.
Indeed.
So, yeah.
Well, speaking of things that you enjoy, I think you had something you wanted to talk about, maybe a little TV show you've been getting into lately.
Yes, The Witcher. And just to congratulations to Jennifer Bernardini on her upcoming marriage to The Witcher. I saw her post, so big
Nice.
shout out to Jennifer. Wishing you many happy years together.
Very
wonder if
cool.
she's going to buy a sword for herself so she can, go out and slay some of her on her own.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll have a spin-off show.
You never know. There's all sorts of possibilities once you start going down that road. I'm sure like Witcher Con could be like,
Yeah.
I'm sure if that's not a thing already, it will be soon. You could be attending that.
So yeah, it's I saw her post about it, and I was watching Witcher, and I thought, oh, there's something we should discuss because you've seen it, and I mean, I really liked it. I didn't know really much about it. I just kind of went in blind. Normally, I know all sorts about the show before I even watch anything, but this one I just went in and I totally caught up in it. I whipped through that first season real quick.
Yeah, I've seen the first season, but I haven't had a chance to see season 2 yet. It is definitely on my to-do list for sure. Because I really enjoyed the first season quite a bit. And The Witcher is really an interesting one, right? Because the sort of history of that IP is very interesting, right? It was, obviously the books originally written in Polish. And then, of course, most people became aware of The Witcher because the video games were so popular. Obviously, like the 3 games that CD Projekt Red did are just huge, in the game world as RPGs go. And so by the time that Netflix show came along, I think a lot of people were just really primed for like the world and the characters and all that stuff. And I know I personally was really pleased to see like how closely like Henry Cavill's performance of The Witcher, himself kind of matched what I envisioned in my mind after like seeing the games and stuff. So that's a very interesting franchise though, like a real multimedia powerhouse at this point.
Yeah. They did a really good job. Well, this is how stupid I am. I was about halfway through, had no idea who the actor was playing it. I kind of was like, he kind of looks familiar. So he's very cool looking. Little did I know he's Superman.
And that's what's crazy about it, right? Like it's such a good acting job and such a good makeup job and stuff on him in that you really don't. I mean, I didn't recognize him at first either. And as soon as it clicked I think I was about 2 or 3 episodes in when it finally clicked for me. I'm like, holy crap, that's Henry Cavill. Yeah. Because I didn't do a lot of prep myself watching the show either. I just kind of jumped into it because, like I say, being somewhat familiar with it from the games, the world and the lore and all that sort of thing, I just wanted to jump into it. I didn't want to go in with a lot of pre-expectations, but like just his swagger and his presence as Geralt is like really cool. Like I think he really helps sell that show and like make it fire the way that I'm sure they intended it to.
He makes a show.
Yeah.
And
those
it's funny
fight
when
scenes too.
When he drops the F-bombs, like first time,
Yeah.
and because it's just so funny how they do it. I was the first time he did it, I was like, did he just say what I thought he said?
Yeah.
And
that's on character too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like the context that it's done. It's usually funny. And it's a really clever show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just I regret not finding it earlier.
Yeah.
But
the nice thing about coming to shows late sometimes is you get to just see a lot more of them, right? Like sometimes I jump on a show real early and then I'm sad because I got to wait a year for like season 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
But sometimes coming late to the party can be a good thing.
Yeah. So The Witcher, it's definitely a series to watch.
Yeah, definitely for sure. That first season for sure. Like I say, and I've heard nothing but good things about the second season, so I'm pretty confident in saying that show's got a good pair of legs under it. But yeah, if nothing else, that first season is definitely worth a watch.
Yeah. So we both agree. We're both thumbs up on this one.
Oh yeah, thumbs way up.
Watch out. And once again, congratulations to Jennifer Bernardini. I'm sure you'll be very happy together.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, we talked about some more hardcore holiday stuff early on in the episode, but I thought a good way to sort of start to wind things down might be to go a little more traditional, a little more old school, and maybe talk a little bit about some of our favorite sort of classic holiday things. Like I know you've got a kind of holiday special that's a little near and dear to your heart that I thought you might want to share with the people.
Yeah, well, thinking back, what was there's so many, going on. I was thinking, what was the one that always stuck in my head? And for me, it was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It came out the year I was born, which makes it quite old. A lot of people actually find it creepy because it has that weird animation.
Yeah,
thing. I don't even know how to describe it.
It's like borderline like stop motion animation.
Yeah. It's like like claymation kind of thing, and some people find it really kind of creepy.
Yeah. It never really bothered me. It never bothered me. And I'm a big Burl Ives fan. So can't go wrong with Burl.
Yeah. It was it just growing up, every year you kind of waited to see it. I mean, there's all the others, Frosty the Snowman stuff, but Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I guess the whole idea of, having someone ostracized for being different, but then ending up being like the hero.
It's a great tale for sure.
Yeah, it was just I'm always into those kind of raw kind of things. And at Christmas too, it just kind of the whole happy spirit kind of thing was really good. So yeah, that was one that I was not to be missed special. I don't even know if they do specials at Christmas anymore. I don't know how they do it, but it was like they'd advertise it for weeks. Christmas special, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer coming out, and you're like, oh, we got to be home. No, we can't be going out because it's next Friday. We had a TV guide, and you would like highlight stuff. It's like it's at 8:00 on Friday. No plans. Take the phone off the hook.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Simpler times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
Do you have a favorite?
So for me, I thought about it a little bit, and there's definitely a few I could mention, but I think for me the sort of go-to is the Charlie Brown Christmas special, because I so relate to the whole Christmas tree scenario. The whole like the tree needs love, man. Everybody
Yeah.
needs love. Just give the tree some love and you'll be impressed with what you get out of that. And I love that sentiment and I love that idea. And it may be a little far-fetched or whatever the way it actually plays out in the show, but I think the sentiment is what matters. And I just love like the scene where he goes to put like the bulb on it and they can't even like handle the one bulb. It just like crushes the thing. And I don't know, there's just so much good dialogue. Like the thing about a lot of those Peanuts specials too was like they were written for kids, but they had that little bit of an adult edge to them where there was like little bits of dialogue and stuff like that that were clearly meant for the adults in the audience. And as a fairly precocious kid, I felt like I kind of appreciated some of that stuff, even as a kid. And I definitely enjoyed, revisiting that like all throughout life. Like that's another one where it's like I appreciated it on one level as a kid, and I think I appreciate it even more as an adult.
It's funny because shows like that, when you see a commercial or something for it, it just brings back so many memories,
Mm-hmm.
of a kid.
Well, and I think another one we almost are obligated to throw out there because I think it's kind of generationally significant for both of us is probably like something like A Christmas Story, right? Like how many times have you seen A Christmas Story?
Yeah, it's such a classic story kind of thing, and it's like basically horror. It's got like 3 ghosts in it.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Nice.
So, yeah,
well, you're talking Christmas Carol.
What did you say?
Christmas Story. The Red Ryder BB gun.
You're gonna shoot your eye out.
Yeah, both of those though. Both of those for sure. So who's your favorite Scrooge? Because there's been a lot of them. Like I remember
Bill Murray.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, that's its whole other animal, right? But I figure like didn't George C. Scott do it at one point? Who is like the classic Scrooge from A Christmas Carol? Oh man, I'm blanking. But
I was gonna say Alistair somebody.
Yeah, Alistair Crombie or Cromwell, something like that.
It's the black and white one.
Yeah,
is the one that's always gonna, because that's what we watched. When I was younger.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I feel like that version, right, is like right up there with like It's a Wonderful Life is like the holiday staple thing, like that you're just gonna see on every channel, like at a certain point in time. Yeah.
I don't even know if do they show those things anymore?
Well, you have on like the cable networks like the marathons, right, where it's like 24 hours of A Christmas Story or 24 hours of Christmas Vacation or whatever, like on TBS or the Turner networks. I think are usually good for that sort of thing here in the US. I'm not sure.
I thought I read something that your favorite, the Charlie Brown Christmas, you can't even see it on TV anymore. That now it's behind like a paywall or something. Someone bought it. I don't know if it was Paramount Plus or.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if it was them because they're good for that. They're definitely good for throwing stuff behind a paywall.
And it's just like, if you were looking to watch Charlie Brown, I was like, really? So like, it's like that's the thing. Disney snaps up the whole Charlie Brown series or, Paramount or whoever, then, kind of disappears unless you got the pay per view or the streaming service.
Yeah. And I think it's so short-sighted too, like the way a lot of these streaming services operate, because like I think what a lot of people fail to realize is that these things are classic and iconic because everybody saw them, right? Like the reason that everybody knows these things is because back in the day they were ubiquitous, right? It wasn't like a thing you had to go out of your way to experience. And I think I'm curious to know and see how things are going to play out over the next 20 or 30 years. Like what's going to be the Charlie Brown Christmas special or like the Rudolph or the, whatever, 20 years from now, because everything's so subdivided and siloed and sequestered at this point. Like what's a thing today that everybody has literally seen and can like gravitate toward and have as like a cultural touchstone.
Well, everything's becoming so sad. What it's going to be is this is your Christmas special on Love Island. That'll be that's what people be watching. Oh, it's the Christmas special. They all dress up and they get a gift, and when one opens, it's like, oh, sorry, you're not loved. She says goodbye.
No.
And that'll be their Christmas gift. That's what it's going to be, some reality thing. But
horrifying.
Yes, yes, the future is horrifying.
Yes. Well, hopefully not. Well, let's be. I'm gonna will myself to maintain a level of optimism here, and hopefully the ship can be righted, or people will kind of recognize the benefit and the value of maybe recapturing some of that stuff before it falls too far off the radar. But talking about holiday movies and stuff like that, another little thing that I thought would be fun to mention are like some of those holiday movies that aren't really holiday movies, where it's like the movie takes place during the holidays, but that's really not the gist, right?
Yeah.
I think like the classic example of that, like I think a lot of people are familiar with at this point, would be like something like Die Hard, right? Where it's like, technically that's a Christmas movie with explosions.
Yeah. Home Alone.
For sure. I know a big one for me, and I think maybe for a lot of like horror fans, would be like Gremlins.
Yeah. Don't feed them water.
Yeah. I always think that's kind of interesting, the films that try to, I guess, for lack of a better term, capitalize on the holiday, even though like the holiday is not the point of the movie in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Well, I know Die Hard. A lot of people jokingly say, that's their Christmas movie.
I know a lot of people who legit watch it. It's not even a joke, right? They're like, oh, holidays, time to watch Die Hard. Yeah.
Well, it's a fun movie. So
well, I feel like certain holidays definitely have more representation than others, right? Like Christmas has got a ton of those, but the one that I always think of is Poor Thanksgiving doesn't have a ton of movies, but there is one that I always think of when I think of Thanksgiving, which is like definitely one of my all-time favorite comedies, which is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I love that movie.
How many versions are there?
As far as I know, there's only one. The John Candy and Steve Martin one is the one that I know of.
For some reason, I was thinking there was two. Maybe I'm thinking Strangers on a Train.
Nice. Very different movie. Well, if you're going to go there, we might as well go with Throw Mama from the Train.
Yeah.
Allan. Funny.
I was trying to think. There was a Thanksgiving movie, like horror movie. It was like a schlock one.
Yeah.
And I can't think of what it is, because I remember them cutting into it, and I think something comes out of the turkey. Or maybe it was, I think it was actually not a movie. It was one of the fake trailers in the Grindhouse thing that Tarantino did. I think that's what it was. It was like, coming this Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving. And it was kind of tongue in cheek. I think it was a movie, but now I think it was because those two movies that he did as sort of the Grindhouse double feature. They had all those trailers with them, and I think that's where I was thinking of it is.
Nice. Well, going back to like Dead Meat and the Kill Count that we talked about earlier, I know he's talked about a couple of Thanksgiving horror movies. I can't remember the names of them off the top of my head, but I know I think he has like a playlist or a section on that channel about like all of the holiday horror films, and I know there's at least a couple of them for Thanksgiving. So
I'm sure there are like horror. I mean,
there's probably one for Flag Day.
Yeah, there's a holiday. Someone's made something.
Yeah, for sure. So, got to get that money.
Exactly. Have gimmick will travel.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think that pretty much brings us to the end of our holiday adventure. But having said that, there is one kind of sad thing that I do feel compelled to talk about and mention, just because it happened to occur just a couple of days here before we were recording this episode. And so I wanted to briefly give a shout out to my friend, author Jay Wilburn, who passed away back in October. Definitely a really good guy, and definitely somebody who will be sorely missed within the horror community and the speculative fiction community for sure for years to come, I'm certain.
Yeah.
I actually have this was going to be on my TBR pretty soon here, but this book of his, which of course the camera's not going to cooperate, but I'll put it up on the screen so you can see it. It's read, write, edit, play, repeat. And the interesting thing about this book is he actually wrote all of the stories in this book while he was live streaming on Twitch. So he would do different streams where he'd write the story live, edit it live, and then read it, the finished product, live on stream. And I actually got to watch him write some of these stories live, and so I definitely wanted this. I was talking earlier about, like, I don't really buy a lot of physical books anymore, but like this was one that I definitely wanted to have, just because of the fact that I'd literally seen him write the stuff on stream, and then to see the stuff in the book after the fact is really cool. And I guess another thing I'll try to show real quick, so if the camera will pick it up. Another thing that's really cool about it is that he put these QR codes in the book so that, come on, camera, cooperate.
You disappeared.
Cooperate.
Yeah.
Wow, it really does not want to pick that up.
No, and even you've disappeared.
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me shut off my background real quick.
Oh, it's just a normal room.
Yeah.
I was always worried when you took it down there was going to be like naked women chained to the wall.
No, it's just
like
not a
movie
particularly attractive camera angle. I don't think it's not as swanky as your background, so I like to throw something up there.
Yeah. Looks like I never clean, just like crap everywhere.
Yeah, that's really the only reason I do that. But anyway, here, so everybody can get a better look at the book.
That's good now.
Yeah, and then like I said, one of the really cool things he did was, for each story, he puts these QR codes in that you can scan with your phone, and it'll take you straight to the video where you can see him doing the process, whether it's the writing part, the reading part, the editing part, whatever. And that's just really cool. Like, I thought that was like a nice touch. I actually I joked with him and told him I was going to steal that idea from him. But like I said, Jay was a really good guy. Definitely will be sorely missed, and definitely wanted to give him a little bit of a shout out. Everybody should go buy his books and stuff, support his family and all that sort of thing, because they still will get to benefit from those sales, even though he's not with us anymore. So
it was sad news.
Jay. Yeah.
My condolences to his family and friends.
Nice.
Well, he was just on a podcast.
Yeah, actually, Daniel Volpe, who we talked about earlier in the birthday segment, he does that Written in Red podcast with Aaron Beauregard and Carver Pike and some other folks.
Roland Bursey Jr.
Yes, thank you. That's the one name I was not 100% sure on.
Yeah, they do a good podcast.
They did a really great interview with Jay. It's probably will end up being one of his last interviews, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes for sure, so people can check that out. But that was a really great interview that they did, and I think people who aren't already familiar with him will get some really good insight into kind of who he was as a person and an author and all that sort of thing by checking that out. So good on you for mentioning that, for sure. That was one thing that had slipped my mind. But having said all that, that is going to pretty much bring us to the end of things for this episode and for the year. So the next time you see our ugly mugs, it'll actually be 2023. So look forward to that and whatever my new background ends up being.
Mine will be the same, except no hat. And don't forget my stocking there, it's empty. So feel free, if you're watching this and you want to send gifts to stuff my stocking, you can private message me, send me your books. Be more than happy to stuff them in my sock or stocking. I don't know what you call it. Yeah.
Good time.
I didn't wear this hat for nothing.
Yeah, I feel like you've earned maybe at least like an arc or two.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Good times.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. We wish you a very happy holidays.
Yes. Feliz Navidad and Happy New Year.
And hopefully 2023 is much better than the last 3 years.
Indeed. Congratulations. You just survived the post-mortem report. For more information about the show, the hosts, or the things they talked about, check out our super swanky information page at anchor.fm/postmortemreport. Until next time, always remember, good posts never die.